What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna be putting the final touches on the Chevy 350 before we get it running. It has been a long time getting to this point, but we still have just a couple small things to add back to the engine before we can actually get it cranking and get it running on the stand. So here's our plan for today. We have to install the mechanical fuel pump, which we've got right over there in its new box. We have to prime the oil pump to ensure we've got oil moving through the whole engine. And obviously we have to put some oil in it and the oil filter. And we don't even have the oil filter connector on the engine yet, so that has to go back on. And then the big one is we have to put the Harmonic Balancer, the new one, back on the engine there. So we've got a lot to do, but it should go by pretty quickly. None of these things are too complicated. I think the biggest one that we're gonna have to deal with today is gonna be making our own oil pump priming tool, which is actually a pretty cool process, and I think you guys might be interested in because it is super useful and will save you some money. So let's get right into it by putting the fuel pump on. So the fuel pump assembly is made up of obviously the fuel pump itself, the plate, and then two gaskets, which both are held together with a pretty copious amount of RTV on both sides of them to ensure that there's no leaks whatsoever coming out of this. So our first step here is to throw some RTV on the engine over there, then put this gasket on, then put that plate on, then put the blue gasket on, and then finally putting the fuel pump in. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is take one of your longer fuel pump bolts and put it into the socket here on the side of the engine. And just to give you a better look, that's where it's going, this little port right there on the side. Then you're gonna take your fuel pump rod and slide it up inside the engine, and then tighten that bolt down until it holds on to the fuel rod. You have to make sure that fuel rod's up in there before you do anything else. So then what you're gonna wanna do here is squirt a little bit of RTV out onto your finger, and we're just gonna cover the surface here in it. Not too thin, we wanna make sure it runs the whole way, but we're not looking for a big heavy bead like we have on some of the other parts that we've put on. So now that the RTV is on there, we're gonna stick our gasket on, and that RTV is gonna hold on to it for us. Then we put our plate in with the two bolts. Then we're gonna take more RTV and put it where this gasket is gonna sit. All right, so now here comes the fun part. We're gonna stick our gasket on here, and we're gonna take one of our bolts and use it to put the fuel pump in. Now you wanna put this in at an angle to make sure that the fuel rod ends up in that little nook there. All right, so once those two big main bolts are tightened down, you're gonna wanna plug this hole in the side, and you're also gonna wanna tighten the two small bolts down here. Now for this bolt that goes on the outside, you're gonna wanna put a little bit of thread sealer on it because it is going into a place that could cause leaks, so we wanna make sure that there is just a little bit of sealer on there to ensure that nothing springs loose. And now we're gonna go ahead and tighten down these small bolts here. And there we go, the fuel pump is now in. So next on our order of business here is gonna be putting the oil filter connector on, and this one should be really easy. Now over here on this side of the engine is where the actual oil filter goes. It just screws right up in there, but obviously there's nothing for it to screw onto at the moment, so we need to put that in. So here I'm just installing the oil filter adapter. It has two bolts on it. It goes in completely dry, no gasket, no RTV, nothing like that. It's really easy. You just put the two bolts in, snug them down good and tight, and you're ready to put your oil filter on. Now when putting your oil filter in, make sure you prep it by running your finger covered in oil along the gasket and getting that lubricated, just so it doesn't tear up or get damaged when you're tightening it down. And then here we're just screwing the oil filter in, and we're good to go. Here's where we're at right now. We got the fuel pump in and the oil filter on, and next we're gonna be putting the Harmonic Balancer on, and we've got this nifty little tool to help us do it. So basically what this does is this end of the tool, the little small end, actually screws into the end of the crankshaft there, and then this whole thing goes through the Harmonic Balancer, and this big nut here at the end will slowly tighten down, and this is a little bearing here to allow it to tighten without damaging anything, and as you tighten, it basically just compresses the balancer onto the shaft, and it will be 100% tight and locked in and good to go. So we're gonna go ahead and try to get that done right now. So we're gonna start by lining our Harmonic Balancer up with the key and getting it on as far as we can that way. Oh, don't roll away from us. All right, so that's as far on as we can get it at the moment. We need to get it in a lot further. So that's where our tool comes in. Goes straight through the center and starts to screw in. And this will screw in all the way until completely tight, basically bottom out. All right, there we go. We bottomed out. Now we're gonna start tightening the big nut, and now we're tightened all the way up against the balancer. So then we just get our big pliers here, grab it, and start cranking. Now, unfortunately, I do not have a socket to make this go any faster, so we're gonna be relying on sheer manpower here. All right, we're starting to tighten up here. I don't know how far down the balancer is supposed to go. I don't know if it bottoms out at some point. I'm gonna go ahead and back this off. Alrighty, so the final step here is the bolt and the big washer and its lock nut. Thankfully on this one I do have a socket to help tighten everything down. So this will go in here at 60 foot-pounds. All right. Well, after getting that on, I just realized that I put it on backwards. Yes, backwards. So now I need to take the whole thing off again and then put it back on again. This is one of those times where I question myself after being out in the garage too long. I thought that I put the balancer in backwards. It can literally only go in one way. I don't know why, but obviously it's not on backwards, so now I just get the fun of doing this twice. All right, after doing that all over again, our balancer's back on, we're good to go. I don't know why I thought it was backwards. That was the dumbest thing I've done in the garage so far. But next, we're gonna have to make our oil priming tool. And in order to do that, we're gonna need the old distributor. There's a couple things that we need. We need about this much of the shaft, and we need this gear to be removed. If we turn it here, there's a little pin here that we can knock out, and that'll pull the whole gear off, and then we can just cut it right about there and get the shaft that we need. So that oil pump drive shaft is actually too large to fit in my drill chuck, so I had to grind it down here in order to fit better, but once it was ground down, it fit perfectly and it was able to be spun by that chuck. So now we can test out and see if there's any oil movement. But in order to see oil moving, we need to have oil in the engine. So my friends, it's time to put oil in. So best I can tell is you pretty much just pour the oil onto the head here, and it's supposed to go down into the engine and fill everything up, and that's how you add oil to this thing. So we're gonna go ahead and try that. Okay, so I see where it's trying to go, which is a little hole that's up there. I'm just gonna take a funnel and pour it directly in there so we don't have any issue. All right, after filling the oil up, it doesn't appear that we have any leaks. Nothing is dripping on the ground as of yet. So now we're gonna go ahead and prime the oil pump. So to prime the oil pump, all we're gonna do is drop our tool basically straight down in here. Unfortunately, my camera died in about the next 30 seconds here, but what you're gonna do is shove this tool down in here just like the distributor would and drop that oil drive shaft down into place, spin it around until it links up with the oil drive shaft down below, and then you're just gonna hook it into your drill and spin it. Now you want to make sure that the little oil gallery that's right next to the distributor on the block is plugged up, otherwise you're going to do what I did and get oil spilling everywhere when you prime the engine. Alright guys, so my drill died, my camera died, everything died while I was doing this, but look, we have oil on every single valve, there's no leaks. Ignore that, that was from this plug, I accidentally primed it with no plug in it, but we got oil on every single one of the valves. It is going through, we're building oil pressure. This is absolutely incredible. I'm so incredibly excited right now. This is the coolest moment so far of the whole build. We have oil movement, we have oil pressure, we have oil. All right guys, here's where we're ending off for the night. We got the fuel lines ran. We got it running through a little fuel filter as well right there. We got all of our spark plug wires ran. We got those nice yellow ones with the matching red and black to complement the engine a little bit. And then I was gonna put the starter on to get that done, but the bolts that I have for it are just slightly too short. So that means I'm gonna have to do you guys a little bit dirty and cut this video short here because it is super late right now, almost midnight out here working in the garage. And I'm gonna have to wait until the store opens tomorrow to go and get new starter bolts, get that locked on, and I am no longer nearly as stressed after seeing that we do properly build oil pressure. I am absolutely psyched to see this thing run for the first time. But that's gonna have to wait until the next video. So make sure you subscribe and turn notifications on so you get notified as soon as that video goes live, because I know you guys are not gonna wanna miss that one. It is gonna be the biggest video, the culmination of all of our hard work on this thing. I am super, super excited, a little bit nervous to be honest with you guys, but overall, I think it's gonna be an amazing experience. So I hope you guys join me to check it out, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!